All right, here we go. Today we have Billy McFarland, founder of the infamous Fire Festival. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thanks for having me in the hot seat.
Hot seat.
Watched your interviews for, 12 years now, so excited to be here.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Well, a lot of people know about you. There's been documentaries and, of course, the social media thing that happened, but it's your first time here, so I want to start in the very beginning. So you grew up in New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. And two-parent house?
Yes, grew up in a New Jersey suburb around 40 minutes outside of New York City. So
Millburn, right?
Yeah, Millburn, Short Hills, so pretty regular suburban New Jersey town.
Okay, and your parents were real estate developers?
Yeah.
So were you well off, middle class?
I think upper middle class. They weren't New York City, business people. They operated in New Jersey, but they did well for themselves, but it wasn't anything too crazy.
Okay. So as a kid, were you a relatively good kid? Did you get in trouble?
I think that my childhood and life took a major turn when in 5th grade I got a computer for Christmas. And this was the exact same time that high-speed internet became available in my suburban New Jersey town. So this is early 2000s. And for me, that computer and the internet became this way to explore the world where no one really knew what was happening quite yet. It was the wild, wild west days. So the boundaries and the rules and the parameters weren't really in place. And I felt like as a 10-year-old, it was up to me to kind of find where those lines were and to push those lines as far as possible.
Right, because you actually started your own social network in middle school?
Yes, in middle school. So I taught myself how to program as a 5th grader, nothing crazy, but good enough to build basic websites. And then in middle school, I built a social network called Your Hot Site to essentially make a private social network for middle school students.
Okay, is this around the MySpace days?
Around the MySpace days. It was MySpace, and then just when Facebook was launching for Harvard only.
Right. And you actually sold the social network.
I sold the social network. So I got in trouble at school. I raised money from 3 of my friends. I was in 7th grade. I remember one day, this kid who only wore Adidas tracksuits showed up in his dad's oversized suit and a briefcase. And he gave me $150 in cash and maybe signed some angel investment form. So that was kind of funny.
Okay.
So I did that. I launched a site, and then the principal called me in. And at the time, people were still scared of the internet, right? Social network was scary MySpace or just for Harvard kids on Facebook, and there was no kind of middle ground. So he called my parents. My parents made me sell it. I put the site online at a 24-hour auction, sold it, gave everybody 3 or 4 times their money back in cash at school. And then long story short, I was applying for college 5 or 6 years later. And it's the third line item on my resume was Your Hot Site. And I'm meeting with the dean of the school. It's some small school in New York. And he pulls the website up. His jaw drops and he turns the screen to me. It was now a porn site. I guess it was bought and sold 3 or 4 times. So rumor was I was starting porn sites in middle school, but it wasn't. And that was a crazy moment. They offered me a scholarship though, so that's kind of funny.
Okay, so you go to Bucknell University.
Yeah, I went to Bucknell.
Okay, did you know what you were going to do at that point?
Thought I would study computer engineering because I like computers. That was the intent. I think I deep down knew it was never going to work out. Went there and lasted almost a year before I left.
Okay, why'd you leave?
I left for 2 reasons. One, I started to fall in love with Brazilian jiu-jitsu back in high school. And Bucknell is in kind of rural Pennsylvania. And back in 2010, jiu-jitsu wasn't what it is now in terms of popularity and mainstream acceptance. There was no jiu-jitsu gym in rural Pennsylvania. And the second reason was I couldn't have a car as a freshman, so I couldn't drive to the gym. So what I did was I bought a car from one of my professors who had the same car that I had at home. So I had these 2 Jeeps, and I would travel to jiu-jitsu, and it wasn't working out. Blew the money pretty quickly that I made starting these websites in middle school and high school, and just wanted to get back to technology and to build a business.
Okay, but you could have stayed in college. You could have gotten school loans, just because you ran out of money that you already have. I mean, I had loans.
I didn't need cash. I was supported by my family at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Paying for my school, but I think I missed the freedom, and I wanted to go out there and play in the playground of the world and not be stuck in this rural environment.
Okay, because you started an online advertising platform called Spling?
Yes, so started Spling during my freshman year of college, and then dropped out because of Spling. And I think at the time I became the youngest person to raise venture capital, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's been beaten many times since then, but that was kind of this moment where, okay, I have real people believing in me, so let's go and try to make this a real thing.
Okay, well, how much did you actually raise?
I think Spling raised $400,000 or $500,000 at the time, then ended up raising a little bit more, over the years.
I mean, that's a lot for a college freshman.
For 18, 19-year-old at the time.
Right, who really has no level of commercial success up to this point. I mean, yeah, you started a site, sold it for a couple $1,000s, but now you're talking about $500,000 worth of investment. How did you convince investors to give you that much money with essentially no experience?
Yeah, it was real. So I think the founding story was pretty interesting. One of my businesses in middle school was a web hosting service where I helped people put their websites online. And I had a really bad fake deep voice, and I pretended like I was an older man the whole time, right? So I didn't want people knowing I was 13 years old in my parents' basement. And one of my customers also was doing the same thing. I had no idea. He was pretending to be an old man. And it turned out he was exactly the same age, and he was this killer engineer and killer programmer. He lived in London. So when things weren't going so well for me at school, I called him up. He was also in his freshman year at university in London at the time. Like, hey, you got to come to America for the first time. Like, let's build a business together. So he dropped out of school, came to America for the first time, like moved in with me. And I think just based on our engineering background and based on the smaller success from the previous companies, we just like hustled, right? And had 200 people laugh in our faces before the first believed in us and tried to make it happen.
Okay. And when you say online advertising, that's like banner ads and that type of thing?
So we tried 3 or 4 things until we found one that actually worked. We ended up creating this content grid that a lot of music artists and TV networks ended up using for their website, where we would take all of their like pictures, videos, and songs and turn it into this like interactive grid where you could hover over it and make the content interactive. So we did like, this is way back when, but we did like the Weeknd's website. We did Def Jam for Rihanna and Drake and like Kanye and all their like artists on Def Jam. So that was kind of cool. But we were young kids trying to make a wave and ended up landing upon some software that was actually pretty cool and used for 3 or 4 years after we made it.
Okay, so you got $500,000 from these investors, but this company went under?
So I fell in love with the entertainment industry, and I think I got lost as a now 21-year-old in the bright lights of New York City. And my peers and my friends were now in their sophomore, junior, senior years of college, around the world. And I'm sitting here in New York, Def Jam's paying me, Discovery Channel's paying me. I'm meeting with these artists, and like I'm taking these meetings and meeting people that I didn't know existed literally 2 years before. I didn't have any friends or any of my friends' families who worked in entertainment. It was more of like you're going to be a lawyer or go work at a bank, and like those are your 2 options in life. So I didn't even know this world existed. And now as a 21-year-old, I'm sitting here, I'm going out with them, like I'm building software they're using, millions of people are going to these websites. And I started realizing that my friends all wanted to like see what this life was like. So I ended up building a company called Magnesis.
Right.
That basically distracted me from Spling. So Spling ended up operating for another 3 or 4 years, but I kind of moved on to the next idea too soon.